The wedding dress hung pristine in my closet when I got his text. "We need to talk." 3 words. 3 stupid, cliché words that every woman dreads. My stomach dropped like a stone. 5 years together and I knew Daniel's texting patterns. This wasn't his usual, "pick up wine on your way home," or "can't wait to see you." This was different. This was the kind of text that came before an ending. I stared at my phone, the delicate lace of my wedding gown blurring in my peripheral vision. The final fitting had been just this morning. My mother had dabbed at her eyes while the seamstress pinned the last adjustments. "You look perfect, Lana," she'd whispered. Now my fingers trembled as I typed back, "Everything okay?" No reply. The drive home felt endless. My hands clenched the steering wheel, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe it was cold feet. Maybe it was work stress. God knew Daniel had been buried in cases at the firm lately. Maybe it was nothing. But when I pulled into our apartment complex, his car was parked crooked like he'd been in a hurry. Our wedding was in 3 days. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heels clicking too loudly in the empty hallway. The door was unlocked. Daniel. He was in the living room, pacing, his phone pressed to his ear. When he saw me, he ended the call abruptly. "Who was that?" I asked, setting my purse down. "Just work stuff." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I used to find endearing. Now it made my skin crawl. I crossed my arms. "What's going on?" He wouldn't look at me. His gaze darted to our engagement photos on the wall, to the half-packed duffel bag on the couch, to anywhere but my face. "Lana, I've been thinking." Every woman knows what comes after those 3 words is never good. "About." My voice was steadier than I felt. "About tomorrow. About us. I'm not sure if this is right." The room tilted. I grabbed the back of the couch to steady myself. "What are you talking about?" "Our families are flying in. The venue's paid for. We've been planning this for a year." Finally he looked at me, his blue eyes clouded with something I couldn't read. "I think I've made a mistake." I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. "A mistake." He swallowed hard. "I ran into Sophia a few months ago." Sophia. His college girlfriend. The one he drunkenly admitted was the one who got away. My chest tightened. And we started talking. Just as friends at first, but he trailed off, but I already knew. "But now it's more," I finished for him. He nodded, almost relieved I'd said it for him. "How long?" 3 months. 3 months. While I'd been tasting cakes and addressing invitations, he'd been with her. While I'd picked out my dress, he'd been choosing her. "Were you ever going to tell me?" My voice was eerily calm. "Or were you just going to leave me standing at the altar?" He had the decency to flinch. "I was going to tell you last week, but I couldn't find the right moment." "The right moment?" I snapped. "When exactly is the right moment to tell your fiancé you're cheating on her with your ex?" His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then quickly away. "Is that her?" I demanded. "Is she waiting for you right now?" His silence was answer enough. "Daniel, look at me." When he finally did, I asked the question that had been burning in my chest. "Why now? What changed?" He hesitated. "Sophia's father offered me a position at his firm. It's the opportunity I've been waiting for." The truth hit me like a slap. "So this isn't even about love. You're trading our relationship for a job." "It's not that simple," he protested. "Sophia and I have history. We understand each other." "And what about our history?" My voice cracked. "The 5 years we built?" He stood, heading for the hallway. "I'm sorry, Lana. I really am. But I need to follow my heart on this." "Your heart or your wallet?" I grabbed the porcelain cake topper from the coffee table, a miniature bride and groom that looked just like us, and hurled it at him. It missed, shattering the hideous lamp his mother had given us as an engagement gift. For a bizarre moment we both stared at the broken pieces. Then to my own surprise I started laughing. "Well," I said, wiping my eyes, "at least something good came out of this. I always hated that lamp." Daniel didn't laugh. He just looked sad. "I'll get my things." I watched in numb silence as he packed, stuffing clothes haphazardly into a suitcase. Through the window I saw a sleek black car parked behind his. Sophia. Waiting patiently for my fiancé to leave me. When he walked out, he paused at the door. "I'll come back for the rest of my stuff next week." "Don't bother," I said. "I'll leave it with the doorman." He hesitated. Lana, I hope someday you'll understand. Understand what? I asked. That you're a coward who couldn't be honest with me? That you used me until something better came along? I smiled bitterly. Trust me, Daniel. I understand perfectly. The door clicked shut behind him. I sank to the floor, waiting for tears that wouldn't come. Instead, my phone buzzed. My sister, my mother, my best friend. All wondering if we were still meeting for the rehearsal dinner tomorrow. I didn't answer. Because that's when the nausea hit. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was sick. And that's when I knew. I was pregnant. The morning light cut through the blinds like a knife, dragging me into consciousness. For one blissful second I forgot. Then the empty space beside me in bed came into focus, and the memories of yesterday crashed down like a wave. Daniel was gone. The wedding was off. And I bolted upright, hand flying to my stomach. The nausea had faded overnight, leaving only a hollow dread. I needed to be sure. The plastic stick sat on the edge of the sink, its digital display flashing the result I already knew. Pregnant. 3+ weeks. I sank onto the bathroom floor, the cold tile biting through my pajama pants. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. We'd been careful except for that one night after the bachelor party, when Daniel had come home tipsy and sentimental, whispering about how excited he was to start our life together. A bitter laugh escaped me. He'd already been sleeping with Sophia by then. My phone buzzed from the bedroom. For the 10th time this morning. I knew who it was, my mother, my sister, the wedding planner. The whole world wondering why the Carter-Harris wedding had been abruptly cancelled 3 days before the event. I couldn't face them. Not yet. You're what? My best friend Anna's voice screeched through the phone. I clutched the test tighter. Pregnant. 8 weeks, according to the doctor. A beat of silence. Then, does Daniel know? No. The word came out sharper than I intended. And he's not going to. Lana, I mean it, Anna. He chose Sophia. He doesn't get to come back now just because there's a baby. Another pause. Then softer, what are you going to do? I stared at the wedding dress still hanging in my closet, the delicate beading catching the morning light. A dress I'd never wear. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm keeping it. By noon my apartment looked like a war zone. I'd cancelled the venue, the caterer, the florist. Each call was a fresh stab to the chest, but I powered through, my voice steady even as my hands shook. The wedding planner had actually cried when I told her, something about lost commissions and wasted peonies. My mother arrived at 2 p.m., her face drawn with worry. She took one look at me, still in yesterday's clothes, hair a tangled mess, and pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Oh baby, she murmured into my hair. That's when the dam broke. I sobbed into her shoulder, all the tears I'd been holding back since yesterday pouring out in great heaving gasps. She didn't say anything, just held me tighter, her fingers stroking my hair like she used to when I was a child. When I finally pulled away, my mother cupped my face in her hands. Tell me everything. So I did. About Daniel. About Sophia. About the baby. To her credit, she didn't flinch. Just nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. Okay, she said finally. First we deal with the wedding. Then we figure out the rest. Daniel came back that evening for the rest of his things. I heard his key in the lock, he still hadn't returned it, and braced myself. He looked terrible, his normally perfect hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. Lana, he started, his voice rough. I just want to, your stuff's in the guest room, I interrupted, crossing my arms over my chest. A subconscious protective gesture. He hesitated, then nodded, disappearing down the hall. I could hear him moving around, the sound of drawers opening and closing. Then silence. Too long of a silence. I found him standing in front of my open bathroom door, the pregnancy test still sitting on the counter where I'd left it. His face was pale when he turned to me. Is this? I snatched the test off the counter, shoving it into my pocket. None of your business. Lana, I said it's none of your business. My voice cracked. You lost the right to know anything about my life when you walked out that door. He flinched but didn't back down. If that's my child, it's mine, I snapped. You made your choice, Daniel. Now live with it. For a long moment we just stared at each other. Then his shoulders slumped and he reached into his pocket, pulling out a set of keys. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the apartment, he said quietly, setting them on the counter. I didn't respond. Just watched as he picked up his last box and walked out the door. This time I locked it behind him. Work was my only salvation. I threw myself into projects, staying late at the office to avoid going home to my empty apartment. My boss, Eleanor, noticed, of course she did. You're working too hard, Carter, she said one evening, leaning against my desk. I didn't look up from my computer. Just finishing the Henderson proposal. She sighed, pulling up a chair. Look, I know about the wedding. The whole office does. My fingers stilled on the keyboard. Of course they knew. The invitations had gone out months ago. Half the firm was supposed to attend. Eleanor continued, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I also heard Harris moved to Thompson and Gray, Sophia's father's firm. The betrayal stung all over again. I'm fine, Elite. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Good. Because I have a proposition for you. That's how I found out about the Denver branch, a failing office that corporate wanted to either turn around or shut down. A 3-month assignment. 3 months away from the city, from the memories, from the pitying looks. 3 months to figure out how to be a mother. I'll take it, I said before she could finish explaining. Eleanor smiled. I thought you might. I was packing my suitcase when I found it. Tucked in the back of my closet beneath a stack of old sweaters was a small blue box. Daniel's graduation gift to me, a pair of diamond earrings with a note, for all the big moments ahead. I sank onto the floor, the box clutched in my hand. All those plans, all those promises. Gone. My phone buzzed. A text from Anna. You okay? I looked around at the half-packed apartment, at the wedding dress still hanging in its protective bag, at the positive pregnancy test I'd tucked into my wallet. Oh, I wasn't okay. But I would be. The Denver skyline glittered through my rental car window as I navigated unfamiliar streets. My GPS announced I was 5 minutes from my temporary apartment. 5 minutes from the new life I hadn't planned. My hand drifted to my stomach. 12 weeks now. Still small enough that no one would notice unless they knew what to look for. Just 3 months, I reminded myself. Get the branch profitable, prove I'm not broken, then figure out motherhood. First impressions. The Wellington Consulting Denver office looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Flickering fluorescent lights, cubicles with stained fabric walls, and a receptionist who barely glanced up from her magazine when I walked in. You must be Lana Carter. The voice came from behind me. I turned to find a man leaning against a doorframe, early 30s, tousled dark hair, a coffee stain on his blue dress shirt. James Whitaker, he said, extending a hand. Operations manager. Or what's left of it. His grip was warm, his smile lopsided. There was something instantly disarming about him. No corporate polish, just genuine curiosity in his hazel eyes as they flicked to my left hand. Noticing the tan line where my engagement ring had been. Nice to meet you, I said, withdrawing my hand too quickly. I'd love a tour before the staff meeting. James raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to see the disaster first? Better to know what I'm dealing with. It was worse than I'd imagined. James walked me through department after department of demoralized employees. The sales team hadn't hit quota in 8 months. Accounting was 3 weeks behind on invoices. The break room microwave had what looked like a decade of exploded lunches crusted inside. And this is where the magic happens, James finished, pushing open the door to a cramped office with a view of the parking lot. Your temporary command center. I set my bag down on the desk. Corporate wasn't kidding when they said this place was failing. James leaned against the doorframe again. We prefer the term challenged. That startled a laugh out of me, the first real one in weeks. James grinned in response and something tight in my chest loosened just a little. 30 skeptical faces stared back at me in the conference room. I could practically hear their thoughts. Another corporate suit here to shut us down. I'm Lana Carter, I began, ignoring the way my stomach churned. Nerves or morning sickness, hard to tell these days. I'm not here to swing an axe. I'm here to understand why a branch that was once profitable is now failing, and whether we can fix it. From the back of the room, a woman with purple-streaked hair snorted. We all know how this ends. They'll restructure us right out of jobs. James, leaning against the wall beside me, cleared his throat. Actually, Lana's proposal. I can speak for myself, thanks. I cut in sharper than intended. A few eyebrows raised. I took a steadying breath. Here's the truth. Corporate wants this branch profitable in 3 months or they're shutting it down. But I don't believe in lost causes. I tapped the folder on the table. This is a turnaround plan. It won't be easy, but if we work together we might just save your jobs. Silence. Then a man in the front row, late 50s salt and pepper hair, leaned forward. What's in it for you? A promotion, I said honestly. And the satisfaction of proving my ex-fiancé wrong. That got a few surprised chuckles. James' lips quirked. The older man nodded slowly. All right, Miss Carter. We'll play along. By week 2 I'd memorized everyone's names and started implementing changes. Extended customer service hours. Streamlined reporting. Even got facilities to replace the microwave. I was in the break room one morning half asleep when I grabbed the wrong mug and took a huge gulp of sickly sweet liquid. Ugh. I sputtered. That would be mine, James said from the doorway, biting back a laugh. Triple sugar, splash of coffee. I shoved the mug at him. How do you drink this? How do you drink yours? He nodded to my black coffee. Bitter as divorce and twice as strong? I laughed despite myself. Takes one to know one. James' smile faltered for just a second, long enough for me to realize I'd struck a nerve. Before I could apologize, he changed the subject. You're good with people, you know. The team actually likes you. Don't sound so surprised. I am. Most corporate fixers come in like dictators. He studied me over the rim of his mug. You're different. The way he said it made my face warm. I busied myself with my coffee. Just doing my job. At 9 p.m. on a Thursday I was the only one left in the office. The financials weren't adding up and I was determined to find out why. A knock at my doorframe made me jump. James stood there holding 2 takeout containers. Figured you hadn't eaten. The scent of garlic noodles hit me and my stomach growled audibly. You're a lifesaver. He pulled up a chair, watching as I devoured the food. Slow down, Carter. You'll give yourself indigestion. Starving, I mumbled around a mouthful. James frowned. You always forget to eat? I hesitated. This was the closest I'd come to admitting the pregnancy to anyone here. Just distracted. He didn't press, just opened his own container. So what's the real story? What do you mean? Come on. Hotshot consultant from Chicago sent to save Podunk Denver? There's more to it. The question hovered between us. I could lie. Should lie. But the exhaustion and the loneliness in the way James looked at me, like he actually cared about the answer, broke my resolve. My fiancé left me 3 days before our wedding, I heard myself say. For his ex-girlfriend. Who got him a job at her father's firm. James winced. Ouch. Yeah. I toyed with my noodles. Then I found out I was pregnant. His chopsticks froze halfway to his mouth. Oh. Hence the... I gestured vaguely at my mostly flat stomach. James set his food down carefully. Does he know? No. And he won't. The fierceness in my voice surprised even me. James studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Well, his loss. Something warm unfurled in my chest at that. At the way he didn't pity me or offer empty platitudes. Just accepted it and kept eating like I'd told him the weather forecast. We worked in comfortable silence until midnight, finally cracking the discrepancy in the books. As we packed up, James hesitated at the door. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you're going to be an amazing mom. Then he was gone, leaving me standing there with a hand on my stomach and an unfamiliar fluttering in my chest that had nothing to do with the baby. By week 4, the numbers were improving. Customer satisfaction scores up. Employee retention stabilizing. Even the break room had fresh paint. I was reviewing reports when James appeared with 2 coffees. 1 black, 1 sugar monstrosity. He set mine down with a flourish. Thought you could use this. You've been here since 7. I took a grateful sip. How do you always know when I need caffeine? I pay attention. He leaned against my desk, closer than professional protocol dictated. Also, you get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're tired. My fingers instinctively went to my forehead. James laughed. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm these past weeks. Late nights working side by side. Lunch breaks where he'd sneak vegetables onto my plate when he thought I wasn't looking. The occasional lingering touch when passing files that sent sparks up my arm. It should have scared me. Instead, it felt like coming up for air after months underwater. James' phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. Everything okay? I asked. Fine. He shoved the phone in his pocket. Just my ex being difficult about visitation. So that was his story. I wanted to ask more, but the moment had passed. Ready for the staff meeting? He asked, all business again. I nodded, following him out. But as I watched James greet the team with easy charm, I realized with a jolt that I was in trouble. Because somewhere between the shared lunches and late nights and his stupidly sweet coffee, I'd started to fall for James Whittaker. And that was the one thing I absolutely couldn't do. The Denver snow fell in thick, silent flakes as I stared at my ringing phone. Daniel Harris. After 6 weeks of radio silence, his name flashing across my screen felt like a punch to the gut. I let it go to voicemail, my fingers trembling against my growing bump. 15 weeks now. Too big to hide with strategic sweaters anymore. The phone rang again immediately. Damn it, I muttered, stabbing the answer button. What? Lana. Daniel's voice was ragged. Thank God. I've been calling for. I blocked your number, I snapped, pacing my tiny apartment. How did you even get through? Pause. Your mother told me. My blood turned to ice. Mom wouldn't. She thought I had a right to know, he continued quietly. About the baby. The room tilted. I gripped the kitchen counter, my vision spotting at the edges. Of all the betrayals. Lana? Are you? Don't, I snarled. Don't you dare pretend to care now. You lost that privilege when you walked out. The line crackled with his shaky exhale. I want to see you. Face to face. I barked a laugh. Not happening. I'm in Denver. My stomach dropped. James found me 20 minutes later in the office supply closet, hyperventilating into a ream of printer paper. Whoa. He dropped to his knees beside me, hands hovering like he wasn't sure if he should touch me. Lana, what's? Daniel's here, I choked out. In Denver. He knows about the baby. James's jaw tightened. Where is he now? Some hotel downtown. Wants to meet for dinner tonight. I dug my fingers into the carpet. I told him to go to hell. Good. James hesitated, then placed a tentative hand on my back. His warmth seeped through my blouse. You want me to go with you? I lifted my head. What? To tell him off. His hazel eyes burned with quiet fury. You shouldn't have to face that bastard alone. Something fragile cracked open in my chest. Here was this man, this kind, ridiculous, coffee-ruining man, ready to charge into battle for me without hesitation. I swallowed hard. Thanks, but I need to do this myself. James studied me for a long moment before nodding. Hey, but I'm driving you. And waiting outside. No arguments. Daniel looked like hell. His usually crisp suit was rumpled, his designer stubble edging toward beard territory. When he saw me, he shot to his feet, his gaze immediately dropping to my stomach. Jesus, he breathed. You're really pregnant? Yeah. Brilliant deduction. I didn't sit down. Say what you came to say. He flinched but recovered quickly, pulling out my chair like the gentleman he'd pretended to be for 5 years. Please. Just hear me out. Against my better judgment, I sat. Daniel's fingers tapped an erratic rhythm against his water glass. First, I want to apologize. Properly. What I did to you. Save it. My voice could have frozen the Colorado River. I didn't come for your redemption arc. Why are you really here? He leaned forward, his cologne, the same damn one I'd bought him last Christmas, making my stomach churn. I want to be part of my child's life. Our waiter chose that moment to arrive. Daniel ordered for both of us. My favorite salmon dish, extra lemon, like we were still a couple. Like he still knew me. When the waiter left, I leaned in. Here's the thing, Daniel. You don't get to waltz back in now that you've had a change of heart. Where were you during the first trimester when I was puking my guts out every morning? Or when I had to explain to everyone why the wedding was off? His throat worked. I didn't know. Because you didn't care to know. My voice cracked, drawing glances from nearby tables. I forced myself lower. You were too busy playing house with Sophia. Daniel's face darkened. That's over. I froze. What? He spun his wedding ring. My ring, the one I'd painstakingly picked out, around his finger. Turns out Sophia wasn't pregnant after all. The world narrowed to a single horrifying point. Excuse me. A false positive. Or, maybe she lied. His laugh was bitter. Guess we'll never know. I stood so fast my chair screeched. You left me because she lied about being pregnant? Daniel grabbed my wrist. Lana, please. Let go. A shadow fell across our table. James stood there, his broad shoulders blocking the ambient lighting, his expression deadly calm. Problem here. Daniel's grip loosened in surprise. Who the hell are you? James Whittaker. He didn't offer a hand. Lana's colleague. And friend. The unspoken and your nothing hung between them. Daniel recovered first, straightening his tie. This is a private conversation. Funny. James's voice was deceptively light. From where I was standing, it looked like Lana was leaving. Our waiter arrived with the food. Took in the scene. Backed away slowly. Daniel ignored him, his focus locked on my stomach. We're not done here. That's my child. James stepped between us. Biologically, maybe. In every way that matters. He gave Daniel a once-over. I'm not seeing much evidence. I bit back a hysterical laugh. Daniel's face flushed crimson. Lana, he ground out. We need to. No. I grabbed my coat. What we need is for you to get the hell out of Denver. My lawyer will contact you about visitation rights. James placed a protective hand at the small of my back as we walked away. I could feel Daniel's glare burning holes between my shoulder blades. James didn't speak until we were in his beat-up Subaru, the heater blasting against the freezing night. You okay? I pressed my palms against my eyes until stars burst behind my lids. He left me for a lie. James exhaled sharply through his nose. Want me to punch him? I'll punch him. That startled a wet laugh out of me. Tempting. But no. We sat in silence for a few blocks before James cleared his throat. So, that was the infamous Daniel. Yep. I stared out at the passing streetlights. Living, breathing proof of my terrible taste in men. James's fingers tightened on the wheel. He's an idiot. Agreed. For what it's worth. He hesitated. You're going to be an incredible mother. With or without him. The raw sincerity in his voice made my throat tighten. I turned to study his profile, the stubborn set of his jaw, the faint scar above his eyebrow I'd never asked about, the way his knuckles had whitened when Daniel grabbed me. Something shifted inside me then. Something dangerous and hopeful all at once. James walked me to my apartment door, hovering awkwardly in the hallway. You sure you're good? I can stay. He threatened to maim your ex if he shows up. I smiled despite myself. I'm okay. But thanks. For everything. Our eyes locked and the air between us crackled with something electric. James's gaze dropped to my lips just for a heartbeat, but it was enough to send heat flooding through me. He leaned in slightly, or maybe I did, until our breaths mingled in the narrow space between us. My phone buzzed in my pocket. We sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. James ran a hand through his already messy hair. That's probably, Daniel, I finished, my voice embarrassingly breathless. The moment shattered. James took a deliberate step back. Right. You should probably get that. Neither of us moved. The phone kept buzzing. Finally, James cleared his throat. I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. Yeah. Of course. He hesitated, then reached out to squeeze my hand. Call me if you need anything. Anytime. Then he was gone, leaving me standing there with my phone vibrating insistently against my thigh and the ghost of his touch burning on my skin. I waited until James's footsteps faded before checking my phone. Not Daniel. Eleanor. Call me ASAP. Corporate just acquired Thompson and Gray. My blood ran cold. Sophia's father's firm. Daniel's new employer. Which meant. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, I whispered to the empty apartment. Daniel wasn't just in Denver for the baby. He was here because our professional lives were about to collide all over again. The boardroom hummed with tension as Eleanor dropped the bomb. Effective immediately, Wellington Consulting has acquired Thompson and Gray's Western Division. She tapped the projector remote, and Daniel's face appeared on screen beside an organizational chart. Daniel Harris will be joining us as interim VP of Client Relations. My pen snapped in half. Across the table, James's head snapped up. His eyes locked onto mine, a silent question. Did you know? I shook my head minutely, my stomach churning. 15 weeks pregnant, and suddenly my baby's father was my colleague. I cornered Eleanor after the meeting. You didn't think to warn me? She adjusted her glasses, unfazed. It was finalized last night. And frankly, Carter, I expected you to handle this professionally. A pointed look at my stomach. Unless you're not up for the challenge? The unspoken threat hung between us. I straightened my blazer. When does he start? One day. He handed me a folder. You'll be running point on the transition. Prove you can manage personal and professional conflicts, and the regional director position is yours permanently. The carrot and stick. Classic Eleanor. I took the folder with numb fingers. James caught me in the stairwell, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by something darker. This is bullshit. Tell me about it. I rubbed my temples. But it's out of my control. Like hell it is. He stepped closer, the scent of his stupidly sweet coffee wrapping around me. You should go to HR, file a complaint. And say what? That my ex-fiancé knocked me up before cheating on me and now we work together. I laughed bitterly. That'll go over great. James's jaw worked. Then I'll talk to him. No. I grabbed his wrist. Please. Just. Let me handle this. His pulse jumped under my fingers. We stood there too long, breathing the same air before he finally nodded. Fine. But if he so much as looks at you wrong, I know. I squeezed his arm before letting go. You'll punch him. The ghost of a smile tugged at his lips. Damn right. Daniel arrived Monday with a new Rolex and the same too charming smile that had once made me weak in the knees. Now it just made me nauseous. Lana. He extended a hand like we were old business acquaintances. Looking well. His gaze lingered on my bump before flicking to James, who stood slightly behind me like a silent sentinel. I ignored the offered hand. Conference room in 10. Don't be late. The team watched our exchange with poorly concealed interest. Office gossip would be nuclear by lunch. I was halfway through explaining the transition plan when Daniel interrupted. Actually, Lana, I think you'll find Thompson and Gray's clients expect a more personalized approach. He flashed his teeth in a parody of a smile. But then you've never been great with people, have you? The dig, a reference to an old argument about my workaholic tendencies, stung more than it should have. James stiffened beside me. I shot him a warning look before turning back to Daniel. Funny. Our client satisfaction scores have increased 18% since you left. I clicked to the next slide. Now, if we can focus on the data. The meeting devolved from there. Daniel challenged every point. I countered with metrics. By the end, the team looked like spectators at a tennis match. As everyone filed out, Daniel leaned close. We need to talk. Privately. James materialized at my elbow. She said no. Daniel's eyes narrowed. This doesn't concern you. Actually, I said, gathering my files, it does. James is my lead on the Denver expansion. Anything you have to say about work, you can say in front of him. The muscle in Daniel's jaw twitched. Fine. But this isn't over. By Friday, the office had split into factions, Team Lana and Team Daniel. The tension gave me constant heartburn. I was in the break room choking down antacids when Daniel walked in. Alone at last. He blocked the doorway. We need to discuss custody arrangements. I set down my water glass with deliberate calm. My lawyer will. Cut the crap, Lana. He stepped closer, his cologne overwhelming. I'm not signing away my rights. That's my son or daughter in there. How noble. I crossed my arms over my stomach. Where was this devotion when you thought Sophia was pregnant? His face darkened. That was different. Because she mattered more? My voice cracked. Because her baby came with a corner office? Daniel's mask slipped. You think I don't regret what I did? I lost everything. You made your choice. The words tore out of me. You don't get to rewrite history now that it blew up in your face. The door swung open. James froze mid-step, taking in our standoff. Daniel straightened his tie. This conversation isn't finished. He brushed past James, knocking his shoulder deliberately. James caught my eye, a silent "You okay?" I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. James showed up at my apartment that night with takeout and a 6-pack of root beer. Pregnancy safe, he said, holding up the bottles. Also, I brought Thai because you've been stress-eating those noodles for weeks. The unexpected thoughtfulness undid me. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. James set down the food and pulled me into a hug. His heart thudded steadily against my cheek. I can't do this, I whispered into his chest. Working with him every day pretending, shoo. His hand stroked my hair. You're the strongest person I know. You've got this. I tilted my head up. Why are you so good to me? James's gaze dropped to my lips. The air between us crackled. Then his phone rang. We sprang apart. He checked the screen and grimaced. My ex probably about weekend visitation. The moment shattered. Reality came crashing back, the messy divorces, the unplanned pregnancy, the fact that we worked together. James ran a hand through his hair. I should take this. Yeah. I wiped my eyes. Of course. He hesitated at the door. For the record, Daniel's right about one thing. What's that? You are terrible with people. A smirk. But you're damn good at everything else. Then he was gone, leaving me standing there with cold Thai food and a heart full of what? Monday morning, Eleanor summoned me to her office. Daniel sat across from her, looking smug. Carter. Eleanor steepled her fingers. We have a problem. Daniel slid a document across the table. A formal complaint about my hostile work environment. My vision went red. You're joking. Corporate requires us to address interpersonal conflicts, Eleanor said evenly. Given the circumstances, I'm reassigning Daniel to the Austin branch. Daniel's smirk vanished. What? No, effective immediately. Eleanor's gaze never left mine. Unless Lana has another solution. The unspoken challenge hung in the air. She was testing me, forcing me to choose between vengeance and professionalism. I took a deep breath. Actually, I do. Daniel's head snapped up. Even Eleanor looked surprised. Keep Daniel here, I said. But he reports to James. Silence. Then Eleanor threw back her head and laughed. Oh, that's good. She wiped her eyes. Harris. Thoughts. Daniel's face was a masterpiece of fury. You can't be serious. I am. I met his glare. Prove you're here for the right reasons and maybe we can discuss shared custody. Eleanor nodded. Done. Dismissed. The office buzzed with the news. Daniel the golden boy demoted. James trying to hide his grin. He caught me after lunch. That was brutal. I shrugged. He earned it. James studied me for a long moment. You could have gotten him fired. And prove I'm the vindictive ex everyone assumes I am? I shook my head. This way he has to earn his place. Just like the rest of us. Something warm flickered in James's eyes. Remind me never to piss you off. Too late. I bumped his shoulder. You still owe me a coffee. He laughed, and for the first time in weeks I breathed easy. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my doctor. Test results came back. We need to look. The floor dropped out from under me. The doctor's office smelled like antiseptic and false hope. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, Dr. Chen said, turning the monitor so I could see the numbers. At 20 weeks, this puts you at significant risk for preeclampsia. The medical term landed like a sledgehammer. I'd Googled enough to know the risks: seizures, organ failure, premature birth. My fingers trembled against my rounded stomach. What do we do? Bed rest. Starting immediately. I choked out a laugh. That's not possible. I have a company to run, a branch to save, a baby to deliver safely, she interrupted. This isn't negotiable, Lana. Your placenta isn't getting enough blood flow. If we don't lower your stress levels, you could lose this pregnancy. The world narrowed to a single horrifying point. James found me in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. Lana. He knocked on my window. You okay? I rolled down the glass, my voice barely audible. I need to go home. One look at my face and he was in the passenger seat, commandeering my keys. Talk to me. The dam broke. Between gasping sobs, I spilled everything: the diagnosis, the bed rest, the terrifying realization that my stubbornness might cost me my child. James listened silently, his jaw clenched tight. When I finished, he pulled out his phone. I'm calling Eleanor. No. I grabbed his wrist. If she thinks I can't handle this, she'll understand. His voice left no room for argument. Your health comes first. The call lasted 30 seconds. James hung up and turned to me. She says take whatever time you need. The Denver branch isn't going anywhere. Relief and terror warred in my chest. But Daniel is being handled. A dangerous glint entered James's eyes. Trust me. Daniel cornered me the next morning as I cleared my desk. Running away so soon? He leaned against my office door, arms crossed. Guess the pressure was too much after all. I willed my hands to stop shaking. Medical leave. Not that it's your concern. His gaze dropped to my stomach. Everything okay with? Don't. I slammed a drawer shut. You don't get to pretend you care now. Daniel flinched but recovered quickly. Eleanor put me in charge during your absence. Seems I'm not the only one who thinks you're in over your head. The jab landed exactly as intended. My vision swam with unshed tears. Then James was there, inserting himself between us. Actually, Harris, Eleanor put me in charge. You're on client outreach. Starting with the Thompson and Gray files. He shoved a massive binder into Daniel's chest. They're expecting your call. Daniel's face darkened. This is bullshit. James stepped closer, using his full 6'2" frame to advantage. No. What's bullshit is you harassing a pregnant woman on medical leave. Walk away. Now. For one charged moment they stood toe to toe. Then Daniel spun on his heel and stormed off. James turned back to me, his anger melting into concern. You could. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. Thanks. For everything. He hesitated, then cupped my elbow. The lightest, most professional touch that still sent sparks up my arm. Let's get you home. 2 days into house arrest, I was ready to climb the walls. My tiny apartment felt like a prison. I'd binged every pregnancy-approved show, organized my pantry by food group, and even attempted knitting. Disaster. The only bright spot was James's nightly check-ins, always bearing meals and terrible reality TV recommendations. Tonight he arrived with Chinese food and a suspicious grin. I come bearing gifts. He dropped a flash drive on my coffee table. Security footage of Daniel struggling with the copier for 20 minutes. I snorted. You're terrible. And yet you're smiling. He nudged my feet aside to sit on the couch. How's the patient? Bored out of my mind. I rubbed my aching lower back. And before you ask, yes, I'm hydrating. Yes, I'm resting. No, I haven't checked work emails. James's lips quirked. I wasn't going to. Liar. I stole a dumpling from his container. How's the office surviving without me? Surprisingly well. Though Janet from accounting keeps asking when you're coming back. I think she misses your spreadsheet macros. The normalcy of the conversation soothed something raw inside me. For a few precious minutes I could pretend this was just two friends having dinner. Not a caregiver and his invalid. Then the baby kicked hard. Whoa. James's eyes widened as my stomach visibly jumped. Was that? Yep. I grabbed his hand and pressed it to the spot. Say hello. His palm was warm through my thin t-shirt. We held our breath together until another tiny thump connected with his fingers. James's face did something complicated. Holy shit. The wonder in his voice cracked me open. This man, who owed me nothing, who'd stepped up when the baby's own father hadn't, looked at my stomach like it held the goddamn stars. Our eyes met. The air between us thickened. Then my phone rang. James jerked back like he'd been burned. I should stay. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Please. He hesitated, then nodded, settling back as I answered. Lana. My doctor's voice was urgent. Your latest labs are concerning. I need you to come in first thing tomorrow. The floor dropped out from under me. How bad? Let's not panic yet. But we may need to discuss early delivery options. I hung up, my hands shaking. James took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. I've got you, he murmured into my hair. Whatever happens, I've got you. And for the first time since Daniel left, I believed it. The maternity ward smelled like sterilized fear. Dr. Chin adjusted the fetal monitor strapped to my belly. Baby's heart rate is elevated. Combined with your blood pressure, we're looking at mild preeclampsia. James, who'd refused to leave my side, squeezed my hand. What's the plan? Observation tonight. If things stabilize, we'll discuss outpatient management. If not. She met my terrified gaze. We may need to deliver early. 23 weeks. The viability cutoff was 24. My throat closed up. James waited until the doctor left before speaking. Hey. He tipped my chin up. Look at me. That kid's already stubborn as hell, just like its mom. You're both going to be fine. I wanted to believe him. But the monitors kept beeping, each shrill note a reminder of how fragile this all was. James. If something happens. Don't. His voice cracked. Don't even go there. The raw pain in his eyes stole my breath. This wasn't just casual concern anymore. This was something deeper, scarier. Something that looked an awful lot like. The door burst open. Daniel stood there wild-eyed. I came as soon as I heard. James was on his feet in an instant. Get out. Daniel ignored him, rushing to my bedside. Lana, The heart monitor spiked. Dr. Chin came running. Everyone out. Now. James had to physically drag Daniel from the room. Their shouts faded down the hallway as the medical team descended on me. The last thing I saw before the magnesium drip pulled me under was the terror on James's face as they barred him from entering. I woke to early morning light and a splitting headache. James slumped in the chair beside me, fast asleep, his hands still clutching mine. His hair stuck up in every direction, and he'd somehow acquired a world's best dad coffee mug from the gift shop. A nurse noticed I was awake. How are we feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. My voice came out raspy. The baby. Stable for now. He checked my four. Doctor will be in soon to discuss next steps. James stirred, blinking sleep from his eyes. When he saw me awake, he nearly toppled out of his chair. Hey. His thumb brushed my knuckles. Welcome back. Did you sleep here? Where else would I be? The simple answer undid me. Tears spilled over. James wiped them away with surprising tenderness. Daniel. I croaked. James's expression darkened. Gone. Security escorted him out after he caused a scene at the nurse's station. He hesitated. He's been calling nonstop though. Says he wants to be here for the delivery if. If what? If we have to induce early. James swallowed hard. They're talking tomorrow, Lana. If your numbers don't improve. Tomorrow. 24 weeks exactly. The edge of viability. I pressed a hand to my stomach where tiny flutters reminded me of the life inside. However this ended, one thing was clear. I couldn't do it alone. Call him, I whispered. James went rigid. What? Call Daniel. Tell him. I took a shaky breath. Tell him he can be here. For the baby. The hurt in James's eyes nearly broke me. But he just nodded and reached for his phone. Because that's who he was. The man who put my needs first even when it destroyed him. And that realization changed everything. The neonatal intensive care unit hummed with machines and hushed voices. I pressed my hand to the incubator, watching tiny Ella, all 2 pounds 11 ounces of her, squirm under the phototherapy lights. Her miniature fingers curled around my fingertip, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so small. Hey fighter girl, I whispered. Mommy's here. Behind me the curtain rustled. I didn't need to turn around to know it was James. His familiar cedar coffee scent wrapped around me before his arms did. She looks better today, he murmured, resting his chin on my head. I leaned back into his solid warmth. The doctor says she might be off the ventilator next week. James's arms tightened around me. 3 weeks since Ella's dramatic early arrival, and he'd been here every single day, bringing me clean clothes, bad hospital coffee, and an endless supply of those terrible dad jokes that somehow made me laugh even when I wanted to cry. A throat cleared behind us. Daniel stood in the doorway, holding an oversized teddy bear and looking uncomfortable. Am I interrupting? James stiffened but released me. I'll give you two some time. No. I caught his hand before he could leave. Stay. The look that passed between them could have melted steel. But after a long moment, Daniel nodded. We sat in the NICU family lounge, an awkward triangle of former lovers and complicated history. Daniel fidgeted with the bear's ribbon. How's work? I asked, more out of politeness than actual curiosity. Fine. He glanced at James. Eleanor made the Denver changes permanent. James got your job. I blinked. What? James rubbed his neck. It was supposed to be temporary. Until you came back. But you earned it, I said, meaning it. The Denver branch had flourished under his care. Daniel cleared his throat. I accepted a transfer to New York. That shocked me silent. New York was as far from Denver as you could get while staying in the continental U.S. James's eyebrows shot up. Voluntarily. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. Turns out I'm not cut out for single fatherhood. Especially when. His gaze flicked to me then away. When someone else does it better. The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the arrogant Daniel I'd known. This was someone who'd been humbled. Maybe even changed. Ella will always know you, I said softly. If you want to be in her life. Daniel nodded, his throat working. When he spoke again, his voice was thick. I'd like that. From a distance. He stood abruptly, dropping a sealed envelope on the table between us. For her college fund. I'll send more every month. Then he was gone, leaving James and I staring at the envelope and each other. Spring came gently to Denver. By the time Ella was discharged, a full 8 weeks after her birth, the cherry blossoms were in full bloom outside our new house. Our house. Because somewhere between midnight feedings and shared laundry duty, James had quietly moved in. I found him on the back porch one April evening, rocking a dozing Ella in her sling while he flipped burgers on the grill. The sight of this big, rugged man gently swaying with my tiny daughter sent a wave of love so fierce it nearly knocked me over. Hey, he whispered as I joined them. She just conked out. I brushed a kiss over Ella's downy head, then another, lingering on James's lips. You're good at that. At what? Everything. He grinned, shutting the grill lid with his free hand. Hungry. Starving. I stole a slice of pepper from the prep bowl. But first I have something for you. James's eyebrows rose when I produced a small velvet box. Lana. Just open it. Inside was a key, to the house, to our life together. And beneath it, a silver band etched with tiny stars. It's not an engagement ring, I said quickly. Not unless you want it to be. But I need you to know, you're her father in every way that matters. And I. James kissed me silent, his free hand cradling my face. When we broke apart, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Took you long enough, he teased, sliding the ring onto his finger. It fit perfectly. Ella chose that moment to wake with a tiny yawn, blinking up at us with Daniel's blue eyes but James's quiet, observant expression. James pressed a kiss to her forehead. What do you think, kiddo? Should we make it official? She grabbed his pinky in her tiny fist. I'll take that as a yes, I laughed. The morning of our courthouse wedding, I stood before the mirror in a simple ivory dress. Not the elaborate gown still hanging in my mother's closet, but something new. Something that fit the woman I'd become. James appeared behind me, resplendent in his navy suit, Ella giggling in his arms. Ready? I turned to take in the sight of my little family. My heart was so full I thought it might burst. Almost. I reached into the closet and pulled out a small bundle of fabric. A strip of lace cut from my original wedding dress. For luck. James tucked it into his breast pocket right over his heart. Then he kissed me, slow and sweet and full of promise. Ella squealed between us, impatient as always. I laughed against his lips. Let's go make it official. 1 year later, we celebrated Ella's birthday in the backyard of our now permanent Denver home. The guest list was an unlikely mix. Daniel and his new girlfriend Eleanor and her husband, even Janet from accounting with her famous macaroni salad. James manned the grill while I balanced a squirming Ella on my hip, her chubby legs kicking in excitement as she eyed her smash cake. Daniel approached hesitantly, holding out a clumsily wrapped gift. For the birthday girl. Inside was a tiny silver rattle, the same one his mother had given him as a baby. Thank you, I said, genuinely touched. He nodded, watching as Ella grabbed for the shiny object. She looks happy. She is. I smiled as James swooped in to steal her away, blowing raspberries on her neck until she shrieked with laughter. Daniel watched them for a long moment before clearing his throat. I'm glad she has him. It was the closest we'd come to peace. As the party wound down, James found me on the porch swing, watching fireflies dance over the lawn. He pressed a cold beer into my hand and dropped a kiss on my head. Happy. I leaned into him, watching through the window as my mother rocked a sleepy Ella inside. The wedding dress I'd never worn was now a christening gown, carefully preserved in Ella's memory box. The life I'd planned had been dismantled and rebuilt into something more beautiful than I could have imagined. Beyond happy, I said, turning my face up for his kiss. And it was the truth. The end.